Greetings, my brothers and sisters, and welcome to the second week and when I'm coining Activate April. And I know with Mercury retrograde, I haven't felt like activating anything at all. But Sensei says this week, with the sun conjoining Uranus and a new moon on Sunday, you're about to activate a new character. From my smartphone to yours, keep streaming for your weekly Namaste Today. Welcome to Namaste Today, a joyful way to start your day. I'm your host and spiritual life coach, Sensei Christopher Witecki. Welcome back, my friend. Namaste. We are into the month of what I coin as Activate April. And I call it Activate because I argue you're going to activate a new ego, defense consciousness, willpower, a new ego basically, that is based on your thrival instead of your survival, and this is probably the greatest and most enlightened ego you have ever created in your lifetime. How can I say that? I say it because of Uranus. Uranus is ready to wrap up its transit in Aries. It began in 2012, right on the cusp of the Mayan shift, and this month, in April, in this transit of Aries, marks the completion of all this work to build a new ego. One based on the Enlightenment, one based on your soul. So this week I'm going to talk you through this Activate April week. I argue you'll have a minor breakthrough in your character, all the while with Mercury retrograde. And later in your tea time, we'll talk about the new moon that's on Sunday, where you'll be committing to this new ego and moving on to your manifestations. But first, let's take a look at the week's moods and your zodiac weather. This zodiac weather is from Monday, April 9th to Friday, April 13th, 2018. Looking at your 5-day moodcast. Viewing the week at a glance, it starts off strong, dips down for a challenge, and ends strong again. Let's take a look. On Monday, it's overcast, cloudy, and passionate. Emotions rule the day, and a moon in Aquarius makes people a little irreverent. On Tuesday, it's sunny and hopeful as step 21 clicks into gear and the Mars trining Venus connects your creation. On Wednesday, it's cloudy, overcast, and shifting. Expect a minor breakdown in your ego to create a potential breakthrough in your character. On Thursday, it's cloudy, overcast, and dreamy. Mental energy rules the day, and a moon in Pisces allows you to get away. And on Friday, it's sunny and healing. Step 24 rules the day, and balance is restored to the ego and story. This week, I'm arguing that you will go through a character breakthrough, but that may require a minor breakdown. In our next segment, I'm going to walk you through the week and what the planets are saying. Taking a sneak peek at the upcoming week, this week the collective consciousness will experience a character breakthrough. But I have to warn you, it may come after a minor hiccup, mistake, or breakdown, because that is the process of an ego learning. Let's roll back the clock a little. I believe the collective consciousness of Earth is developing a brand spanking new ego. If you don't know, our ego is our willpower, our ability to push, our ability to take action. It's what we perceive as strength or weakness inside of us. It's the energy that carries out the soul's intention. Now, almost every ego on the planet was born in a fight or flight syndrome. That's because the collective consciousness was still very much warring and fighting with one another and fearing survival altogether. I grew up in the 80s where we had nuclear war disaster drills where we got under our desk as if that would help you with a nuclear bomb. But the point is we were all raised with this fight or flight sort of defense mechanism. But then in 2012, we had what we call the Mayan shift, and that's where the conscious energy was elevated. And at the same time, Uranus entered into Aries. Now, Uranus is an innovation energy. Whatever consciousness it hits gets innovated to the highest possible level at that time. So in other words, Our ego has been pushed to evolve this entire time since 2012, for the last 6 years. And Uranus is finally at the end of its Aries transit. What this means is we are finally at the end of our ego evolution. But with an ego, the problem is it has to break down in order to break through. That's just the way the ego consciousness works. It's all built on survival. It's all built on strength. So to build a new one, we have to break down the old. Now, I believe we have been breaking down the old, and I believe we have been birthing a new one. But this week, I argue, you will have your final ego breakdown and breakthrough. And it epicenters around step 22. That's when you really experience your life from an emotional perspective. And you could say, once your ego is tested by your emotions, you will know if it's ready to fly, the winged ego as I call it, or if it's going to remain grounded, the survival, fight, or flight ego. Now I have to say, not everyone is going to take this flight. I think a lot of people on the planet are going to look at this and decide that they have to build a new, stronger ego, a more fortified ego, an ego that's ready for battle, an ego that has more armor, right? And that would be the choice to repeat what you have already cycled through. And many people make that choice to repeat, and they build the same old ego. Other people will decide to make new choices with their action, their behavior, and their responses, and they will birth the winged ego. So you could say that this week is the final test as to which ego you're going to choose. And it will come down, in my opinion, to the final hour, because that's the way the ego is. It holds on to the very last minute before it finally acquiesces and moves forward. Now there's other energies that's also happening to help the process. The biggest co-conspirator of our ego is our mind, what I call the smartass, always smarting off, always antagonizing, always encouraging us to fight, always worrying, creating a situation to be concerned about survival. But thank Goddess, Mercury is retrograding at the same time that we are birthing a new ego, which means we have the opportunity to not just birth a new ego, but birth a new mindset, so we can end the instigator perspective and find the voice that taunts the ego inside of us all the while. So this week is going to be kind of wishy-washy, I think. I think there'll be days when you feel strong. I think there'll be days when you don't feel strong, because you literally are going to be moving forward with a new action plan, but you're probably going to find that your old ego keeps pulling you back, and at times your mind pulls you back. Let's start first with the mind. This week is the final week of Mercury retrograde. Mercury goes direct on the new moon on Sunday, April 15th. And Mercury this week starts at step 6, which is good. That means our mind is open to new ideas. Now, you might have been working hard on this new ego this whole time, but you might have found that your mind kept playing the old records, was not willing to think differently, and you might have had some trouble struggling with your mind. But I think this week, the mind finally acquiesces. The mind will be open to new ideas. And as Mercury retrogrades back to step 4, which is a breakthrough in the way your mind sees it, you will start to open up and see more and more of the new way of behaving, the new way of responding, or the new ego character as the week goes on. So what I'm basically saying is, be patient, okay? This is going to take a little time, and your mind might be your worst enemy for the first couple of days, and you have to be mindful not just of your actions, but also of your thoughts. But I believe Mercury hits step 4 literally, is it on Saturday? Yeah, it looks like it's on Saturday. Literally on Saturday, the day before, which means you will likely have some sort of breakthrough, some sort of realization as to why it is your mind has not given up the fight. And what you'll likely see is a new way of looking at the old situation. So this is how most breakthrough ends up happening. Nothing actually changes in your life except the perspective at which you're looking at it. Now, one big powerful building agent this week is Mars, which is the ruler of our ego, and Venus. Mars and Venus are trining all week long. Mars is in Capricorn, so our ego is actually focused on not birthing a new ego. Our ego is actually concerned with control, business, and what decisions to make. So although we are actually reinventing our ego is distracted by trying to be in control of our life, all right? Represented with Capricorn energy. But this week, the cool part about that is Mars starts the week at step 12. So our ego, just like our mind, begins the week open to trying new things, which is awesome. And by the end of the week, Mars ends up at step 16, Capricorn, which means our ego is willing to acquiesce to our spiritual demand. So the ego, although obsessed with control this week, is going to be open to trying new things, and that's my advice. My advice is don't try to get to the final solution of what this new character means. Focus on every action and try to do the new action or the reaction from a new perspective, and just remain open to trying new things. Don't try to hit some benchmark like superhero. Now, because Mars is trining Venus this whole week, Venus is in Taurus, Mars is our push energy, you could say it's the sperm. Venus is our pull energy, you could say it's the egg. To have the sperm and the egg of consciousness working together means that we will be creating and manifesting at a much faster rate than we normally do this week. Venus in Taurus is opening us up to really give birth to a new reality, which is what Taurus is. So as the ego stumbles through the right way to respond, you're also gently kind of fixing the way things will manifest. So you could say that this whole week is kind of an adjustment week, where you're trying to just fit your ego and what you're open to, and sometimes maybe less ego, more open, less open, more ego, back and forth to just kind of get it just right, like the three little bears, right? Where the porridge was just right. Now, given that whole thing, this week ends up happening in a bit of an arc. We start off pretty passionate. Step 20 rules the day on Monday, and that means emotions are ruling, and that's really what makes this weekend so liquid and so sticky, is that our feelings are affecting us. Before, when we were in the teen steps, our heart was on the line. We were dreaming, we were hopeful. The heart is full of love and optimism. So when you go through a transit with the teen steps, it's not as difficult. But when you get the emotional steps, right, which is step 20 up to step 29, people's feelings come to the party. And this antagonizes the old ego to want to act out and want to respond to over-respond, basically, right? So what that means is, with this new ego, even though you want to focus on controlling the world and taking control of your destiny with Mars and Capricorn, what you really ought to focus your control on is your own feelings, okay? So I recommend you channel that masculine energy into self-nurturing and getting through your day, because it will keep you from clouding your growth with emotional baggage. And this is not the sun in Cancer, this is the sun in Aries. So we may have a lot of emotional baggage. We're not going to get to that emotional baggage till the sun moves into Cancer. So you can't do too much at once. Focus on nurturing the emotional baggage, and that should be part of the new ego anyways, is to take care of thyself. So the week starts off very passionate. Monday might be a hard day for most people. Then things lighten up. And then on Wednesday afternoon, we're in a two-step day, step 22 rules the day. So I'm expecting most people to slip on a banana peel or a bar of soap Wednesday afternoon to Thursday afternoon, okay? And this is basically the winged ego trying to take flight. So it may be all good intentions. You may start off perfectly. You might be self-nurturing. Everything might be going right. And something you didn't expect might happen, the unexpected. That's part of step 22. So be conscientious that you are launching this new winged ego, but it's the first time it's taking flight. So be self-compassionate, be non-judgmental, give yourself the time to actually learn this, okay? So I think a lot of people at step 22 may decide to turn back. That's my concern, and that's what I wanted to tell all of you is like, don't give up then. Don't give up on Wednesday and Thursday, okay? Keep going with your intentions. It's plenty okay to make mistakes, and that's part of the new ego. It's not based on survival anymore. We're not talking about your ability to stay alive. We're talking about your ability to thrive, which means that we'll take practice, and practice makes master. After Thursday, I think it's kind of cloudy. After Wednesday, Thursday, it goes kind of cloudy. You get kind of heady. And you're in your head, and you're processing why didn't the flight work the way it was supposed to work. And Thursday and Friday are really the 2 days where you can make adjustments to what you think you should aim for or what you believe your behavior should be. What this all adds up to is the character you are becoming. Your character is the sum total of all of your actions and all of your behavior. So I'm thinking that Friday and Saturday will be a lot of introspection, thinking. Saturday is very spiritual. And then on Sunday, we have the new moon. So it's not till Sunday that the universe is calling for you to make a commitment to what direction you want to take your ego and your action. Now, a couple of things before we go to the tea time. One is, Chiron is at step 29 Pisces this whole week. So I mentioned this in last week's show. You are being tested on your spiritual values this week. All right? So part of the key of launching the winged ego is that your own compassion and spiritual opinion is right beside the ego. They're no longer on different planets. They're working together. And what that means is you must be the spiritual voice you are to others to yourself. You must treat yourself the way you have treated others. And I'm assuming only light walkers are watching this show, not selfish bastards. So you have to treat yourself the way you treat others. The other thing that I want to point out that's important for this week is that with Mercury retrograde all week long, you have to give room for the fact that your mind is literally lost. It's foggy. It's having a hard time focusing on what to move. You are literally out of your mind, and this is a blessing. So rather than feel like you can't process anything or responding in a negative way in your mind, realize your mind is being reprogrammed. You must come up with the new way to think, the new way to respond, the new way to talk to yourself. And looking at the planets, it doesn't look like you really will be clear on what that voice should sound like until Saturday. So for God's sakes, be compassionate and be patient with yourself. Patience is difficult in an Aries transit. Now, with that said, I want to talk about what this new moon means for all 12 signs. So go steep yourself some tea. Let's have our weekly tea time. Hello, my friend, and welcome to our tea time. Today's tea time topic is fate-shifting new moon. We have a powerful new moon this Sunday, April 15th, and I got to tell you, I think this is one of the first times I have actually craved for the full moon to come. And that's not to complain, it's just, this Aries consciousness. You know, we're in between egos, and I don't know about you, but with Mercury retrograde and us swapping out egos, it kind of feels like we're on the highway, and as we're driving toward our destination, God decides to swap out the engine. And so there have been times where I've just felt like complaining, felt like going into my old ego, felt like doing nothing and not having the energy for anything. So I myself am really grateful to launch this new ego, grateful to move forward. The new moon on Sunday is going to be pretty powerful in my opinion. The reason why it's so powerful is because the sun will be conjuncting Uranus. Now the sun will be at step 26. Step 26 is I commit. And if you don't know, a new moon is when the sun and moon come together. The sun is your heart, the moon are your emotions. So if your heart and emotions come together, they agree on something, then you plant the seed of a new state of awareness, a new way of being aware of who you are. In this case, what we're planting the seeds of is a new way of character, your big picture of what your character is you're aiming for. And as I mentioned, your character includes all of your behavior, all of your actions, all of your defensiveness, all of it, right? Including the title. These are the things we usually think of characters like the title, their name, their status. Yeah, that's kind of the aftermath of character. But what character really comes down to inside of us is our own behavior, particularly to ourselves. So on Sunday, we are launching a new character. Step 26 means we are committing to a new character. And because Uranus is at step 28, conjoining the sun, it also means we're not just committing to a character, but we're committing to manifesting a character and manifesting an innovative character. That's what's probably most fascinating to me about this, because Uranus is innovation energy, and so the character we are creating right now is a character that will not stop here, but will continue to innovate and grow and innovate and grow, which is a good thing, right? Especially since we're going into thrival, because we don't want to just settle for the next level. We want to thrive higher, and thrive higher. Now, I'm expecting the new moon to actually feel very quiet. That's the weird thing about new moons. They're very, very powerful, but you'll see over time that the most powerful spiritual transits feel the most quiet. So Sunday will likely be a very quiet day. You'll probably be very introverted. The good news is Mercury goes direct at step 4. And what that means is at the time of creating the highest version of your character, the big picture of who you are and who you are not, you will at the same time be thinking about your character from a whole new perspective. And you could say that that's really what we're waiting for this week. I think the ego is ready to go now. It's very impatient. It wants to get started. But it's our mind that I think is the co-conspirator, our mind that is holding us back. And so if you get frustrated with your inability to perform, observe your thoughts. How are they guiding you? Are they supporting you? Are they constructive? Are they destructive? Is it the same old thoughts over and over again? Because if that's the case, you're not getting it, and your mind is holding back the launch of what I call the winged ego. Now, also on this new moon, Mars and Saturn are still conjoining. They have a 7-degree orb. Mars, which is our ego consciousness, says we are now aiming in this moment for an enlightened ego, because step 16 nets to a 7, which means we are looking for spiritual control over our life. That is a blessing right there. And Saturn will be direct at step 9 Capricorn, which means we're moving ahead or taking responsibility to move ahead and take action on our new control. And that's what's been changing since December 20th. When Saturn went into Capricorn, the universe has been saying to us, you can't keep controlling the world the way you think you can control the world. All right? And I think President Trump is a great example of this. Whether you're for Trump or against Trump, it doesn't matter. You have to admit that the way the government controls things now is completely up in the air. It's completely changing. We're going into tariff wars. We're going into all sorts of putting up a wall on the border, all kinds of weird stuff. Because Saturn is a Capricorn, the way we control our life must also change. So in this new moon, you're not only launching a new character, but you're launching a new way of being the controller of your life, a new way of being in control of your life. Some people have always been passive-aggressive. Some people have been manipulative. Whatever your control mechanism is, whatever you are creating is the expiration of the old and the birth of the new. Saturn is going to be retrograding shortly after this. Juno and Chiron are conjoined in Pisces. And I already mentioned this earlier, but Chiron at 29 degrees means you're also being tested on your spiritual faith at the time of this new moon. So putting it in practical terms, this is a time where there's the surefire bet and there's what your faith says is possible, right? And the old ego will want the surefire bet. The ego will want to feel secure. It'll want to feel safe. It will be focused on survival. But the new ego should be focused on faith, which basically means that if you're doing it right, you're probably crossing your fingers and closing your eyes and praying, okay? Because you're being tested on your faith, and this is not a time to expect guarantees from the universe. Those egos that can fly are in touch with their spirit. So I think Chiron there. Now Juno at 24 means that we are also maximizing our ability to open up to spirit. So it's not just having faith, but opening up to faith, opening up to what our spirit guides tell us, opening up to what our intuition tells us as well. And then lastly, Venus will be at Grandmaster Step 19 Taurus, which means all of this character change, all of this control change, it's all going to be planting the seeds to a new reality, basically, a new way of manifesting. So it's not just a new way of acting, it's a new way of manifesting. It's also a new value system. So you used to maybe value revenge, or used to value your anger, or used to value these old ego-attached things. So you're going to find that your values are also changing, and that's something to look for as a sign. Now, here's the last interesting part of this. Pardon my Mercury retrograde mouth here. Here's the last interesting part of this new moon. The North Node at the time of the new moon will be at step 11 Leo. Why is that significant? It's significant because we had a lunar eclipse at step 11 on January 31st. I don't know if you've been watching me this song, but I had talked about how people out of integrity will fall out of integrity in that lunar eclipse. This new moon, this new connection to this new ego, this new winged ego, this represents the replacement for whatever fell out in January. So we're seeing the universe kind of put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And it's interesting because I remember during that eclipse, that was the week that the FBI and Donald Trump were fighting back and forth, each calling each other out of integrity, right? Like both parties. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on the national scale. I'll bet you one of those two fighting factions suddenly regains integrity sometime after the new moon. And of course, Mercury will be direct, so we'll be seeing things move forward. So I want to walk through all 12 signs and talk about what this new moon means for you, what you are committing to on one level, and then the other level is where does your mind need to have an absolutely new perspective in order to pull this off? Where do you need to think differently? And that would be your goal as you move through the week and as Mercury retrogrades from step 6 to step 4, for you to be thinking about how you think and what your approach is on thinking, because your mental approach basically is the co-conspirator of the new ego. Is it going to be constructive or is it going to be destructive? It's your choice. It's up to you to be mindful. And as always, I will put up on the side of the screen the sign I am talking about in case you want to fast forward to yours. Aries. Aries are working on a new character. So I think we're going to see Aries really go through a character change. And I got to tell you, I've seen Aries make character change. At first, you don't believe they actually changed. You're like kind of waiting for it to fall apart. But they really do. They have an ability to rebirth themselves faster than any sign I've ever witnessed. So they're going to reinvent their character. That means their behavior, their willpower, where they put their energy. They may completely drop out of a project and join a new project. I've seen Aries break up with people on this type of thing. So be compassionate to your Aries. They're going to probably go through a lot of change. They're going to literally rebirth. And for Aries, they have to have a new mental approach when it comes to their defenses. So the way you think about your safety, Aries, needs to be rewritten. You have to think about your safety from another perspective. I would recommend the perspective is, I'm already safe, okay? That there is no safety issue. That it's about thrival, not survival. So for Aries, it's a new character backed by a new way of looking at defense. Taurus. Taurus are going to commit to a new spiritual mission. And I have to say that is absolutely true. Although it isn't brand new in my head, I will say since February, I have been feeling a new spiritual calling, a new spiritual mission. This is included, don't worry, but just a different aim. So Tauruses are going to feel like their mission on Earth is different than what they thought it was come around the Mayan shift, which is 2012. And for Tauruses to be able to move forward with this new mission, their mind must have the approach of fearlessness. They can no longer be thinking about the past, the karma, what's happened to them, or be caught up in fear or worry anymore. So if you're packing the fear-worry mind, Taurus, you're basically bringing along the old co-conspirator to your new spiritual mission. Gemini. Geminis are going to birth a new social status. So they're going to get a title, a new neighborhood. Maybe they'll get married. Maybe they'll get divorced. Maybe they become a parent. Okay, so they're going to come up with this new status. They're a new person in the world. And for this to happen, they have to think differently about who their friends are and where they belong. Okay, so their mental conspirator has always assumed that they belong with a certain type of people, or they belong in a certain neighborhood or among a certain affluent group, let's say. And that is the thinking perspective to the old ego. So they must change their mind about where they belong in the world. Cancer. Cancers are going to come up with a new career legacy. So Cancers are changing what they want to be when they grow up, basically. They're going to commit to something new. This might be that they retire. This might be that they go back to school. This might be that they get a job after raising the kids. But they're going to come up with a new career legacy. For this to happen, they have to change the way they make decisions. Okay? And I'm going to tell you what I think the secret sauce is. Cancers, you must consult your own feelings in your decision. And you may think, Cancers consult their own feelings. Oh yeah, Cancers will consult everyone else's feelings, but they don't consult their own. okay? Like, they'll feel bad and still make the decision. So I think the new mental approach for the Cancerians is it must be in alignment with how you feel. I think that's the new approach to making and that means that you don't know how you're going to feel tomorrow, so your future may change based on your feelings. That's fine. Leos. Leos are making a new commitment to what they consider their life purpose. That's what brings them meaning, what brings them joy, what makes them wake up in the morning. They're going to come up with a new reason. A lot of Leos' reason was just to shine and be popular, right? But now they're coming up with deeper reasons, with more meaning and more understanding behind it. Now, for this to happen, Leo, you have to have a change in your thinking when it comes to believing in yourself. You must no longer doubt yourself. You must believe 100%. And remember, belief comes from the heart. It doesn't come from evidence, all right? So for Leos to find their life purpose, they must take the new mental approach of believing in themselves. Virgos. Virgos are going to go through a transformation. So Virgos are basically going to commit to a makeover. That doesn't mean they're going to do it right away, but it does mean that they're going to commit to doing it. So expect a lot of Virgo transformation to be coming up over the summer. For Virgos to be able to make this transformation, which by the way could include anything, could be their house, their life, their spouse, everything about them could possibly change. It has to do with comfort zones. It has to do with their own emotional boundaries. But for this to actually play off for the Virgos, Virgos have to think about trust from a different perspective. You must trust yourself. Your mind must, by default, trust yourself. It's okay if you, by default, don't trust the world, but you must, by default, trust yourself now to pull off the transformation. Libras. Libras are actually going to make a jump for self-mastery. That's right. They're going to actually be committing to bringing out the best in themselves, which is a huge revolution, by the way, because most Libras have always considered themselves here for others, not necessarily here for themselves, but they really are here for themselves. And for them to pull off self-mastery, Librans must be mindful of their new marriage vows. So you must think differently about what you promise yourself. You must be clear about what you promise yourself. It cannot be foggy or vague, and it cannot change when someone is unhappy with it. All right? So by having a strong marriage vow to yourself, you will be able to make your commitment to self-mastery. Scorpios. Scorpios are making a total transformation of their lifestyle. And lifestyle basically means how you feel moment to moment. Most Scorpios I know feel kind of like a slave worker. They feel overworked, they feel overcommitted, they feel overtired, just way too much. So we're talking about the entire quality of your life. Is it 3-star? Is it 5-star? Now the way to get to this is to have a different mental approach about their health. What healthy really is. So healthy is not stressed. Healthy is not tired. Healthy is not hungry, okay? And I think because Scorpios are so good at persevering, they have allowed these little things to go by because they're basics in life. It's not like the house or the career or the kids. They can go a few hours without food. Because you have this mental approach that your health can go for a while, this is what ends up creating the lifestyle of chaos. So Scorpios are changing their lifestyle because they're changing their attitude and approach to health. Sagittariuses. Sagittariuses should be fun to watch. They're actually committing to their own personal dreams. And most Sagittariuses have pretty fun dreams, okay? They're very ambitious. They're adventuristic. They like to go out and do things and see things and try things that the rest of us don't really have the courage to do. So Sagittariuses are going to be finally going for what makes them tick, what makes them happy. To get there, they have to think differently about the way they love themselves. So you have to have a mindset of loving yourself first, Sagittarius, and being mindful of what your heart gets out of any situation, making sure you get your piece of the birthday cake, making sure you get your take-home prize, all right? So to reach their personal dreams, which may include romance, anything under the sun that the heart wants, basically, they must be mindful of how they love themselves. Capricorns. Capricorns are building a new nest egg, a new emotional foundation. An emotional foundation can be a lot of things. It's your home, it's your family. It could be your real estate investments. It keeps you financially secure. It can be these things as well. But what it really is a commitment to feeling good before success. Did you hear me? Before success, you feel good, not after. So they're changing the priorities in which they put their intentions. Now, for Capricorns to get there, they must think differently about their feelings. They must be mindful of their feelings being one of the most valuable parts of their life. If they don't put their feelings first, they won't actually feel secure and they won't build this new homeland security. Not to borrow a Bush term, but it comes to mind. Aquarius. Aquarius is adopting a new attitude on life. And I've been watching some Aquariuses offline. I'm friends with a lot of them. They've been a little cranky this last month. And that's because their attitude isn't working anymore. And they're building a new attitude on life. And this might also be a new grand plan as well. Sometimes this involves a master plan of how they intend to go and how they intend to do things. It may also be that they're going to be intellectuals for a living. So they might be deciding to commit to an intellectual property, such as a film or a book or a music album. But for Aquariuses to get to this new attitude or this new intellectual property, they must change the way they think. In particular, they have to drop all of their pretenses. In other words, all of your prejudices, everything you have once thought, you have to give your mind a complete clean slate and allow life to show you otherwise. So if you don't give a mental clean slate, you won't be able to pull off the new attitude or the new grand master plan. And then finally, the Pisces. Pisces are actually going to be committing to a new manifestation. Manifestation could be money, a job, a car, a child, a wife. I mean, like, it's anything under the sun. Pisces are committing to the ability to create something out of nothing, to make something out of a spiritual idea into an actual reality. And it may simply be just making more or having more or coming out of poverty. But in order for them to commit to that manifestation on this new moon, their mind must have a new approach about what they're worth. So you must be mindful of what your value is before you attempt to manifest. And you must be clear on your value 100%. No longer going back and forth and upgrading your value, then downgrading it, then upgrading it, then downgrading it. You must be committed to a new attitude about what you're worth. And if you commit to that attitude of worth, I believe you'll be on the path of manifestation. All right, my friends, this is going to be an interesting week. Remember, as you go through the week leading up to the new moon, your power is in your practice. We're talking about ego here. We're talking about behavior, which means you just keep practicing. Practice makes master. It's okay if you make a mistake. It's okay if you drop the ball. It's okay as long as you get up and try again. You are teaching the new ego how to behave. And I believe if you focus on your process, not your outcome for the entire week, you'll find yourself in that new character by Sunday morning. Now, I have a couple of announcements. For one, I've decided to throw a reading sale. I noticed I have some openings in April and May, so for this week and this week only, it's a Mercury retrograde. See, I was going to say it wrong. Mercury retrograde sale. I'm knocking off $50 off my 1-hour readings, and I think $30 off my 30 minutes. If you've always wanted to have a reading, this is a great time to come down and book. You'll find openings on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm willing to leave this up for a week. I've had a lot of people say, how come it's always at least a month or so before I can book you in a reading? Because these reading sales sell me out. Okay, so if you're interested, if you're one of those people, come on down to wateki.me. That's where I have my readings and my schedule. And if you have a special need for a time that you want to be read, go ahead and purchase one at the sales price and email our customer support. We do work with people and put in special times for some people. So don't rule out just because you don't see your day available. We'll work with you on that. Also, I want to invite you to join my Serious Joy Personal Sensei service. Right now, we are doing great work together. I don't know if you know this, but every day I give a daily pep talk that walks you through the day. And right now, what I've been talking a lot about is the Mercury retrograde and each step number that Mercury retrogrades to. So if you want daily hand-holding, literally text messages sent to your phone, come on down to SeriousJoy.com. And then lastly, as always, a warm welcome to come to our home on the internet. We have a little Facebook club where we kind of mingle with each other and post about our spiritual businesses and post questions about rocks and minerals. It's called the Namaste Today Club. Anyone is welcome to join. Our only rule is that you use compassion when you post. If you'd like to join, come on down to namastetoday.club. All right, my friend, have a fantastic week launching this new character. I'll be back next week when the sun is ready to move into my sign, which is Taurus. Until then, remember, I love you, and to live, love, be.
It's serious.